What's up, everybody? Another episode of Ripple Effect Podcast. Here we got John Brackett. He's an automotive engineer and activist from the film Pump. Pump is available on iTunes. It's available on Netflix at the moment. It's available anywhere you can get documentaries and films, and it's a great film. I highly recommend it. It's just done beautifully. The pace is quick enough where it keeps people entertained, and also has just tons of good information from like the history of OPEC to the history of the diesel engine and Henry Ford and his first engine, and just a bunch of stuff people didn't know, like the history of ethanol and how Henry Ford ran his cars off ethanol, and the link between Prohibition and trying to get cars off ethanol. Just so much information. So definitely check it out. This is a really informative show. We definitely learned some shit and talked about a lot of stuff. Some stuff was even hard for me to keep up with. John's just such a super smart guy, and I had my buddy Chris as my co-host on this episode because he's actually an engineer and he works on alternative energy, and he's a big car guy, so I figured he'd be the perfect person to sit in and add to the conversation, which he did. So it just ended up being a really just fun three-way conversation. So definitely check out the film. The film's called Pump, and like I said, you can find, most people I'm sure have Netflix. You can find it there, or if you like it so much you want to buy it, it's on iTunes and Amazon, I'm sure, and everywhere you can find films. So definitely check it out. I think that it's for people who aren't too familiar with this information, I think you'll be very surprised how we just throw around this energy crisis, and you realize that there's not really a crisis at all if we just put our attention in the right places, like other alternatives like ethanol and methanol and solar power and batteries and electric cars and stuff like that. So enjoy the show. Also, like always, Theory 6 music. You can find the links in our video episode. This is John called in using video. So just like all our conversations where the guest calls in using video, you can find the video version of the episode on our YouTube channel. You can just search the Ripple Effect Podcast, or you can just find RV Theory 6 and that'll bring you to it. That's the name of the YouTube channel. So check that out, and you can actually see me, Chris, and John have the conversation if by any chance you want to watch it on YouTube. And in the show notes, I put links to the guests. I also put links to my music project, which is a great way to help the show continue. And it's Theory 6, which I'm sure most of you guys know. It's also a theme music that you hear in this show. If you want to hear the stereo high-quality version, you can go on iTunes, you can go on Amazon, Google Play, everywhere, and you can find the music. And if you purchase it, the money goes right to helping keep the music project and the podcast going. So you get some music and I get a little help. So everybody wins, I guess. So thanks again, guys. I really appreciate it. I'll keep this intro short because I know I've had a couple long ones. And I'll just get right to the conversation because it's a very intriguing one. So enjoy it, and I'll see you on the next one. What's up, John? What's going on? Oh, we were hoping you had the mustache. We saw your Skype picture. We're like, let's hope he has the mustache. We're big admirers of nice mustaches.
We are. It's badass.
Thanks for being with me. I really appreciate it.
Glad to have you.
We're huge fans of the movie Pump. This is my buddy Chris. He's co-hosting with me today. He's in alternative energy and a big car guy, so I figured he'd be the perfect fill-in for doing the co-hosting today. But so thanks for being with me. How did you get involved in the Pump movie? I know you're a part of the Fuel Freedom Foundation or something like that, right?
Actually, an independent organization working for another person that you saw in there, Dr. Robert Zubrin. His book, Energy Victory, came out about 5 years ago, and he started using methanol as a fuel because it was very easy to make from infinite amount of sources. If it was alive, it could be made into methanol. And so I've been doing research on no fewer than 20 vehicles so far on doing alternative fuels on those cars. For example, we ran a diesel today on propane. We ran a cobalt last week on ethane. It's amazing how easy it is to do with the right tools and software.
Yeah, I think the movie talked about how averaging around 120 to 150 bucks, you can convert almost any car to flex fuel, right?
Yep.
With like just the right software or something like that?
Exactly. It really is that easy.
How does the fuel mileage compare to running?
It really depends if you can optimize the spark timing.
Yep.
I found that with stuff like E85, which is the most common available fuel, we only lose 5 to 15% fuel mileage. But since it's 20 to 30% cheaper,
Right.
you're actually saving money.
Yep.
For fuels like methanol, I've lost about 30 to 40%,
Okay.
but it's less than half the cost. And then the best part is the octanes on those are over 100 octane. So you can run engines with 15, 20 to 1 compression ratios, which we have here.
Yeah, that's
and you get more power and the same fuel mileage as you would do with gasoline.
And what a lot of people don't know is the history of the engine, how Henry Ford actually used alcohol initially, right?
No, the very first cars that were mass produced were run off of ethanol and then gasoline. The diesel engine was not run on diesel. Diesel didn't even become a fuel until 20, 30 years after Rudolf Diesel died. It was originally run off of coal dust or peanut oil.
That's wild. Yeah, that's insane because that's like stuff. I mean, a lot of us who just grew up with only one type of energy that we know, gas, and to look back and learn that, now I know even in the film talks about the Rockefeller link to Prohibition and pushing or stopping the development of ethanol engines and stuff like that. I mean, that's insane, but it makes perfect sense. How for people who don't know how Rockefeller had interest, obviously, because Standard Oil to Prohibition to stop all alcohol production, and that link is insane. And even the diesel engine, with very few modifications, you can change it to run off vegetable oil. Or do you even need to do any modifications to it?
It's the same thing as if you want to optimize for the fuel, you want to be able to slightly change the computer settings. However, it is technically a drop-in fuel with no changes needed.
That's insane. The thing is, too, I always tell people, I'm like, you look at it, the engine from like the first engine, that Henry Ford created to today, there's not much difference between how it works, but yet everything else about the car completely fucking different. I mean, you have satellite radio, you have navigation, you have power. It's like, but yet you're still using basically the same technology for the engine, and obviously that tells you something that technology has been suppressed. And and the EV1 in the 90s, the early 90s, I believe, was a really popular car, and then GM took that off the market. And what do you see? You think eventually we're going to is it ethanol going to be the future of cars? Do you think it's battery powered like Tesla? Well, what do you think is going to be the future?
I want to see them all. The whole point is to have a fuel choice. It should be a local solution. We have so many wasted resources all over the United States, whether it's compost, whether it's all the flared natural gas out there, whether it's any biomass. Anything can basically be made into a fuel. Even plastics can be made into fuel. But we're not allowed to sell them and use them right now. It's the chicken versus the egg problem. Do you build a bunch of cars that can run on only one fuel, or do you build a bunch of gas stations for cars that can't run on them? I believe that we already had the solution, flexible fuel cars. Feed them what they want and let them run.
And how did you get into this? Were you just a car guy growing up, or were you engineer first, or how did it come about?
Comes from Daddy-O. He was a mechanical engineer, got me a car when I was 16. When it broke, he said, fix it. Found that I kind of liked it, but man, a lot of things really break. Ended up going to college for mechanical engineering out near you guys, University of New Hampshire.
Oh, nice.
Oh, wow.
So graduated from there, did Formula SAE, which is basically you take a Formula One style race car, quarter scale, and I found out that the math behind all that is predictable. From the explosion in the cylinders to the tire contact, you can really predict what's going to happen. So I became an expert in talking to the cars and designing every aspect of them.
That's interesting. Yeah. I mean, it's weird. I mean, the thing is about ethanol too is that I know that there's some debate about how it's not as efficient or doesn't burn as well or whatnot, or the price of it. But if we spend this many years developing the gas engine, if we spend the same amount of time and money invested in the methanol engine or ethanol, one of the two, which another thing I want to get into, because I just learned what methanol was. I didn't even know what that was. But could these engines be as efficient or more efficient?
Octane is what I mentioned earlier. The higher the octane, the more compression ratio you can get. And that's the ratio of the volume in the engine when it's all the way down and all the way up. You're very limited by the octane gasoline, which, by the way, when you actually do the refinery from gasoline, it's 50 to 70 octane. These alcohol fuels start at over 100 octane. And so what that means is where we're stuck with 10 or 12 to 1 compression ratios right now, we could be in diesel range at 15 to 20 to 1 compression ratios, which is 10 to 15% more energy efficient right there. I mean, you realize engines are only about 15 to 25% efficient. And if you look, most of that's going into moving the car. 1% of that energy that is being burned is to move your butt around.
Damn. Yeah, that's insane.
That is.
Yeah, I mean, back to methanol. A lot of people like myself, the only time I've ever really seen the word besides documentaries like the one you're in and Gas Hole and other documentaries, I've seen stickers on like gas tank or at a gas station. You'll see 10% ethanol and then you'll see 0% methanol or whatever. I'd see the word pop up, but I don't know anything about it. I know there's a nicknamed wood alcohol, but what exactly is it?
Well, you know you have it in your car already, right? And you actually fling it all over the road all the time. Windshield wipers fluid is 50 to 80% methanol.
Really?
Oh, it's a huge commodity right now. It is all over the place. It was the original flex fuel vehicle from the late 1980s through about 93, I guess, is when we had methanol flex fuel cars. It was when the corn lobbyist stepped in and said, hey, we can make ethanol as an additive because MTBE at the time was determined that it was a cancer-causing agent. And so they gave them a cleaner additive. And that's why ethanol has really taken a hold. And we all know how big the farming industry is in the U.S. That's the only reason they have been able to grab a hold of our transportation sector at all. Right now, I mean, whose interest is it that we don't have that fuel choice? And whose interest is it that we maintain the oil monopoly?
Oh, absolutely.
That's the problem.
Oh, yeah. So basically the same people that were fighting oil, are fighting ethanol and alcohol, Rockefeller. Today, it's still the same people, the oil interests. So things really haven't changed much. Yeah, that's yeah, go on.
No, even if you go to the oil wells right now, have you guys seen some of the photos from North Dakota at night with the flaring?
Oh,
they
yeah.
are wasting tremendous amounts of energy because the energy is so cheap. Yet I can run vehicles off of every single one of those fuels. And all those fuels can very easily be turned into methanol.
Yeah, and the other thing you talked about, which was interesting, I remember in the film they highlighted, and I'm glad they did because I remember this too, how when ethanol, they were blaming ethanol for the price of food going up and alcohol, based, because you would end up using alcohol from fruits or vegetables or whatever from food, and that would bring the food prices up, and that was just a scare tactic to get people to think, oh, we should stick to gas and oil.
Exactly.
And so yeah, it's funny how propaganda just works. That's the thing, like most of us don't have the time to, and they capitalize on it. I mean, big corporations capitalize on it. They just don't have the time to research. I have a flex fuel truck, and I knew it had something to do with ethanol. I knew nothing about how would I get ethanol, what would I have to do, and I didn't realize it was as simple as just basically putting ethanol in the engine, and I could use any ratio of gas and ethanol. And but the thing is, it's just a
Where
fucking
do you get it?
Yeah. Where do you get it? It's a badge on a vehicle that sells vehicles, but yet nobody know. I see flex fuel badges on all types of vehicles, and I always ask people, I'm like, oh, your vehicle is flex fuel? They're like, yeah, but I don't know what the fuck it means. And that's so common. It's like, do you think it's strictly just for marketing?
Well, part of it was cafe credits. Is you can take a 16 mile per gallon Tahoe, and if you apply a flex fuel badge to it and you put the programming in, they get the credit to get a 30 mile per gallon vehicle because it only burns 15% gasoline. The rest is ethanol, or at least it has the possibility. Now in Massachusetts, you have one E85 station. It's in Chelsea.
That's what
Are you going to drive to Chelsea to go fill up?
Yeah, because when I was watching the movie Pump, they show a graph of the United States with a bunch of dots all over it, which show where the stations where you can get ethanol are. And just like you said, I noticed that there was one dot in Massachusetts, and it's the town that you just mentioned, which is pretty far from here, so I'm not going to drive all the way there.
Exactly. I was just in Boston last weekend, drove through Rhode Island, drove through Connecticut. There was only one station in all three of those states. 90% of the people in this country don't even have an E85 station in their zip code. Wow. I have to drive 20 miles to go get my fuel.
Yeah,
how is that a fuel choice?
It's not.
Yeah, and then in the 1900s, I know Germany, right? Didn't Germany use ethanol for, was it military equipment, or was it for everything, just like Brazil now uses it?
They actually used the Fischer-Tropsch process, and they would, very similar to using compost, they made carbon monoxide and hydrogen, and they just recombined them into bigger molecules to make a synthetic gasoline. And that's the only reason they survived so long in the war. And in Energy Victory, the book I mentioned earlier, Dr. Zubrin talks about how when we finally destroyed that factory, everything turned around. That was right before the Battle of the Bulge, where those tanks just went out and stopped.
Damn. Yeah, those Germans, man, they're fucking smart. We got to keep our eyes out on them. It's amazing how that there's even synthetic gasoline. I mean, isn't that...
That was 70 years ago we had that building. We've had this for 100 years, and yet we've been stuck with one choice. And it's not really a choice if you don't have anything else to choose from.
Yeah, and that's the crazy thing, is that we had options before we even had a crisis, and now we have a crisis because they removed all our options. And it's, I mean, do you think it's just a lack of information out there? What do you think is stopping this trend of people? Because I've talked to my wife about it, how I'm like, I am ready to buy an electric car, not because, you know, I love the car I have. I have a supercharged Caddy, but I love the car, but and I love the sound of a engine. I love the sound of the exhaust. I've always had 8 cylinders with loud exhausts, and I love that. But yet I am so tired of being a slave to these corporate machines that, and just knowing that, gas prices could be lower if they wanted to. Cars could have better gas mileage if they wanted to. And we just being stuck, because it's the one thing you can't really protest. I mean, we can protest if we don't like a certain company. Usually there's a competitor, and we can protest that. Well, I'll buy your competitors. But you can't protest gas. You can't protest that. I mean, we all need it to get to work. It affects everything we do, and how our food gets to the stores, how our clothes get to the stores, and so it's one of those things where it really bothers me, the fact that we don't have that many affordable electric cars, and the ones that are ugly. And so it's one of those things where just like I feel like there's probably are going to be, I mean, you're a gearhead. I mean, do you think that it's going to get in the way of electric cars? Would you not get an electric car because of the fact that you love the sound of an engine powered car or diesel powered engine? Or how do you think that would...
No. I mean, for my daily driver, I would totally do it. I have, project cars, and I like old hot rods and custom cars, so that would be my outlet for that type of thing. If I want to, relive the past, so to speak, and go and cruise around in an old car that's 75 years old, I can do that with my car that I drive on the weekend or, after work. But for my daily commutes and 95% of my driving, yeah, electric, why not?
Yeah. I think that's probably the feel of a lot of people. I think that we could still have those car guys who can have that project car, but yet the everyday driving. And I talked about this on one of the podcasts before, I think, and about this idea that if we only knew the shit we're breathing in daily, I want to come up with this thing that we can pour in gas engines or gas tanks, and the smoke that comes out of cars is a distinct color, so that way we can see how much shit is in the air. Because I feel like we so commonly, I remember being in a traffic jam, and I'm just thinking, there's cars bumper to bumper, and all these fucking cars are burning shit that's going out in the air, and I'm breathing in. I have my windows down, and I'm like, I just can't see it. If I could see it, I'd probably be a lot more angry about it, But I mean, it's amazing how, they talked about how the life expectancy in, I've seen a statistic, the life expectancy in cities are lower because they say because of all the fuels you're breathing in, also the brake dust in the air, and all these things we just don't see, so we forget it's there and it's affecting our health. And that's, that alone should be a motivation for people to look for other options besides the fact that, obviously, what do you think it is? Do you think it's just the oil companies? Do you think that they're the ones who really have the control over the future technology of, because I know Tesla, Elon Musk, I hats off to him, because I think what he's doing is amazing. I think the fact that he's like, I don't give a fuck, they're saying this can't be done, but I'm doing it anyways. And I think Tesla's the perfect name for his company, because he reminds me of Nikolai. Just this idea of he cares more about the future of humanity than he does just making a profit at the moment. And he's had a lot of pushback with, I know that in certain states he couldn't sell his car, where they're trying to prevent him from selling his car directly from the factory, because there's certain laws or something like that. You had to go to a dealership, and he was doing it so then he could lower prices of his car. And so do you think is it the oil companies? Is it the car companies? I mean, what do you think has suppressed all this time? Because obviously there has been this technology for a long time.
I think we're stuck with two problems. The people are not educated to know they even have a choice. Most people don't have a clue that you can put basically anything into an engine and make it run. And because they're simpler molecules, they can burn cleanly. The second one, who has to pay for the infrastructure? If you want to add an additional E85 station right now, it's about $60,000, and there are no incentives for you to get paid back. So it's a big disconnect. We got flex fuel cars in the first place because the domestic manufacturers, GM, Chrysler, and Ford, could not meet the corporate average fuel economy standards that were laid out by the government. So they gave them a cop-out. Hey, make more flex fuel cars, and we'll give you a credit for it. But they didn't connect the dots. Right now, we are producing more ethanol than any time in history, and we're doubling our crop yields to make that ethanol in the first place. Yet, we're stuck with what's called the blend wall, where every bit of gasoline sold in the U.S. right now has 10% ethanol already in it. There have been years of testing showing that E15 would be just as good. And the cars I test, no problems, run E30 at E50. Where I like to start changing things is above E50, I change my spark timing tables. I will make sure that the car knows to adjust right, because you don't want bad emissions. Like you talk about, the gasoline cars, no matter what, are going to emit stuff. Even methanol has emissions. That's just a byproduct of combustion. How bad those emissions are is a big difference. There's always the hybrid transition right now, but you're adding 2 powertrains, 2 storage systems. I love the idea of a lightweight electric car. Personally, that's what I'm waiting for. But I also have my weekend toys and my modified cars. I have a 450 horsepower WRX right now. Nice. Runs on pure E85, and I hand-built every aspect of it.
Badass.
But government says we're not allowed to do that, even though when I take it to the emissions testing station, it burns cleaner than my gasoline version did.
That's wild, yeah. Those WRXs are fun cars, all-wheel drive, turbo. It's amazing how much horsepower you can get out. You still got the 4-cylinder in there, the 4-cylinder turbo?
Yep. I built a high compression. I talked about raising the compression ratio because of the higher octane. I did that myself, and I'm getting 25% better fuel mileage than I did with gasoline on E85, which has 25% less energy in that same volume.
Wow,
that's impressive.
This is fully possible.
Yeah, they've been doing that type of stuff, for years. Like I mentioned before, I like hot rods and stuff from the 30s, 40s, 50s, and even back then, you could buy an aluminum head for your, say flathead Mopar, which was shaved a little bit for what? To raise compression. Exactly what you're saying.
That's where you get your thermal efficiency back.
Right. And they've been doing it for years. But nowadays, unless you want to, probably pay decent money or do it like yourself, go to a machine shop or all this, who's going to go out and, shave their head and try to increase compression? Probably not many people.
You bring up a good point, though. The do-it-yourself approach is tough because mechanics nowadays need to be electrical engineers. The cars are so complex, they are so integrated because of all the emissions criteria on them. But you can sit in your garage with your new car on, and you probably would never suffocate because it burns that cleanly. The EPA really has done a lot to make it so that our cars are safer and better for our atmosphere. But there's so many more of them, and they are still hindered by gasoline with its 85 to 93 octane. We need to be looking at other choices, and they need to be developed locally.
Well, that's the thing. Like all the work and money we're spending to try to make a gas engine just healthier for the environment. I mean, we could spend. It seems like half that research could go into other alternatives and be a lot safer for the environment, right?
Seems like a Band-Aid almost. You're just trying to band-aid the problem instead of, go to the source of the problem, the fuel.
Phenomenal way to put it. It is a Band-Aid. If you look at generators nowadays, just the ones that stand by and run at 60 hertz all the time, 50% of the cost of the generator is the emissions control system right now.
Oh, wow.
Your car probably has $3,000 to $5,000 worth of just emissions equipment on there, not even including the catalytic converter.
That's wild.
I'm a big diesel fan, and I have a 2003 Dodge Cummins. It has very little emissions equipment on it, but I've been looking maybe upgrade my truck. You look at all the emission stuff that they put on one of those trucks nowadays, that if something goes wrong, you're paying, you could pay like $10,000 just to fix an emission setup. That's outrageous. Simply outrageous.
Yeah. So, and look at how many moving parts there are in the car, whether it's the transmission, whether it's the engine. There's over 250 moving parts in an engine nowadays. Mm-hmm. How many are moving in an electric vehicle? And how many connections does it take to make it run? There's 1 or 2 spinning bearings. There's a positive and a negative terminal, and the rest of it's a control system. We should be able to have a battery storage, put a car body over top of it, put the motor inside the wheel to act as both a brake and an energizer, and just run power to it. They are that simple, and that's why I think they're the future.
And talking to your point about putting batteries, I work in the fuel cell industry, so you could replace those batteries with a electrochemical fuel cell. The benefit of a fuel cell is you don't have to recharge it. You feed it fuel and it's constantly working. It's a load following device.
Hydrogen and methanol are phenomenal fuels for fuel cells because they are so simple, they're very clean, and they, I guess oxidation is usually what occurs on the surfaces.
Yes, yeah.
Cause it to split.
Yep.
It's a great technology. I'd love to see it improve. The membrane costs of manufacturing right now are pretty high.
They're high. I mean, you're using platinum on your catalyst. The platinum is expensive. That's what drives up the cost.
Yeah.
Too. And I know I think it was Hartford, they had some fuel cell powered buses that were running. Well, those have been squashed. They've been parked somewhere. They were, I believe it was a PEM fuel cell running on hydrogen air. So it has a hydrogen storage tank, and then it pulls the oxidizer, the oxygen, out of the air and feeds it to the catalyst and creates the power.
I've even run several of our engines on pure hydrogen right now, and the only byproduct from that are heat and water. We have the ability to do this right now. There are several companies out there. It's whether you have the infrastructure, and then the place to start is definitely public transportation. Those are the ones, the fleets. Those are by far the easiest to do mass conversions and get everything rolling.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but look at the trolley cars. Won't they just put what happened with what was it, GM, Firestone, and Mack
trucks? That blew my mind when I saw that. I never heard of that.
You never? Oh, dude, I heard. I heard about that, and they got fined for conspiracy because they end up getting caught. But they were basically getting rid of all the trolleys, which at that time were booming, and people. I mean, it was a great alternative, just so then we could get diesel-powered buses, and that's insane because that's a historic fact. It's not a conspiracy theory. It's not. I mean, that's a perfectly black and white example of how they obviously are motivated to keep us addicted to the oil. And I mean, like my buddy Chris, when he saw it, I've seen it before, but so many people don't even know about that story. And same thing with the EV1 and all these things where just like you look at it historically, there's tons of evidence of us trying to or keeping us addicted to oil. And that's the thing. You talked about platinum mufflers. We have a small family-owned construction company, and just recently we had the new Mass DOT thing where we have to change all our mufflers on our machines to put these new better emission mufflers that were like ridiculous. I mean, you're talking about $2,000 for a muffler for a John Deere, which has which didn't need a new muffler, and we needed just to put it on a job site, and I'm like, why the fuck are these things so expensive? I'm like, this is ridiculous, and they're like, oh, there's platinum in it. I'm like, are you serious? But it's amazing how it's one of those things like Chris said about a Band-Aid. It kind of I looked at it, I'm like, okay, can it help the environment? Yeah, I guess, but we have 1,000 billion cars and trucks on the road every day, and you think like my little Bobcat having this special platinum muffler is gonna save the world? I mean, I guess it'll help, but I mean you're putting a huge cost on small contractors like us, and really there's bigger fish to fry, like the GM who sells thousands and thousands of cars every month, so it looks like they're taking baby steps. I mean, it looks like we're going in the right direction, but we're taking baby steps. Do you see us, do you think all these signs are signs of us going in the right direction, and things eventually you can't keep us addicted to oil much longer? People are starting to become more aware of these alternatives, and I think obviously the green thing, it blew up where everybody's going green, and even if it's just for marketing reasons, people are going green, to look environmentally friendly. But do you think that because of that, and obviously global warming and global climate change and all that conversation, do you think eventually we're gonna be more serious about alternative energy?
I'd like to say so, but I don't really have faith in our current policyholders and the people that are making that policy, the people that are in control. They have no desire to change the status quo. Gasoline right now is cheaper than it's ever been in a decade. And that literally shut down the U.S. manufacturing industry for oil. For all the whether you like fracking or not, it produced a lot more oil. It made us so we were the number one producer again. And all it took was the OPEC countries producing just a little bit more, and it dropped the price so much that we can't even afford to frack anymore in many places. And who right now running for office has given you a single energy policy change? Whether it's nuclear, whether it's alternative fuels. The only thing we've heard is in 100 years, we're going to be reducing off of fossil fuels. In 100 years. It's going to take either a big disaster or somebody with the power to actually make some good decisions and push it forward. Personally, I'm a big fan of natural gas, nuclear, and using local resources. They're rotting right now. Grass clippings, your compost in your yard, everything can be made into a fuel locally. The costs come from transporting it. It's amazing that we can pull stuff out of the ground, transport it through a pipeline that we had to construct hundreds, if not thousands of miles, and still add a whole bunch of additives to it, put a lot of energy into the system, and then give it back to the people and tell them it's a deal. If you look at how much every single taxpayer in the U.S. basically pays $5,700 to the oil industry to keep this artificially low gas costs. If we looked at the true cost of fuel right now, that's when alternative fuels are going to pick up. And the problem is, and why we lost methanol in the first place in the 80s, and why ethanol has been given such crap right now, is because every 5 to 10 years, OPEC increases the production and drops the price of oil. It's not even it's not a consumer-driven commodity, really.
Oh, no, it's
not. If
not.
the price is controlled by something else. It's controlled by a cartel, and we know how to handle cartels.
Oh yeah, it's definitely. It reminds me of the light bulb cartel. The whole light bulb conspiracy of how they slowly started lowering the hours of light a bulb will give you, and that's another proven fact. I mean, it's a historic evidence that things aren't designed to last forever. Things are designed to last a significant amount of time until until the new model comes out. And that's why we talk about it before, how old cars, how old cars you can get an old car and it's still in decent shape and you could still restore it. And now you can get a car, you can't find a car from the 80s in decent shape, I
mean, I have a 1939 Plymouth business coupe.
Get a little closer to the microphone.
You'd be amazed the shape that it's in for being 75 years old. And it went through, that I know of, like one mild, barely poorly done restoration. But the car is all there. If you get underneath the car, the frame has no rot, barely any surface rust. Can you imagine that? 75 years old. Nowadays, my 2003 truck is already rotting away on me.
Especially those salted roads in New England.
Yeah, it's insane. I mean, the idea that basically we could run cars off moonshine or anything that, I mean, obviously this idea, I mean, just to put it for simple terms in case anybody is confused about all this engine and fuel talk. I mean, ethanol, you can basically run an engine off anything that produces alcohol, which is basically anything that has sugar, anything, it's endless. It's endless. And obviously you can always grow food and there's, it's just endless amount of energy. And that's the thing. I hate when people say we have energy crisis. It's like, we have sun, we have wind, we have, waves in the ocean. There's tons of energy. We're just not using it, So like this whole idea that we have this energy crisis is absolutely insane. Like we just, we have an energy crisis, maybe when you're looking at our addiction to oil, because like you said, the cartel of OPEC can choose when to raise and lower prices with no justification to it. Because let's be honest, the whole peak oil thing, personally, I think it's bullshit. I'm like, how do we know when peak oil comes, if it went, if it, how do we know the Earth's not producing more oil as we speak the same way it produced it initially? I just think there's all these question marks, and nobody ever knows when they slow down production, when they drill a little more, they can do whatever they want to really just manipulate the oil prices. I mean, you look at just recently, I don't know if it was nationwide, I'm pretty sure it was, when when gas prices just went down, like just out of nowhere, went flying down out of nowhere, and nobody asked any questions. It's like there's no reason for gas price, but it shows that they potentially could be that low. And I mean, personally, I think it was more of a geopolitical strategy against Russia to lower prices, to kind of make Russia compete with those oil prices. And that was my understanding of the whole thing. But it's insane that there's people that literally have to choose between what they're going to eat today, and if they, and how much gas they're going to put in their car. And these guys are just, not caring less and just raising prices, lowering prices, and it affects so many people's lives every day. And we have to put an end to it. It's that's why I'm so passionate about this topic, because there's so many people that really, I mean, when gas prices were high, I mean, people would. Before, back in the day when we were all growing up, we used to argue about, no, I want to drive. Everybody, no, I want to, now everybody argues about, look, I don't want to drive. Gas prices are expensive, and it's just like times have changed so much, and where gas has become, before it wasn't something really thought much of, and now it's one of those things where it's become a huge part of your budget. And I think that alone should be motivation for people to inform their friends. I mean, I'm a huge believer that we can slowly make a difference. That's why your documentary is, one, it was beautifully put together, because I'm a huge documentary fan, and but I know that in 2015 we're constantly stimulated with phones and things that it's hard to keep people's attention for long. And the documentary was really well put together. It was constantly going from one interesting topic to another interesting topic with the music and everything, and it really kept people's attention. I mean, it kept your girlfriend's attention, which was rare to keep anybody's girlfriend's attention watching a documentary.
At the end of the movie, she's like, I want ethanol.
That's awesome. That's exactly like how I felt. Like I was motivated to trade in my car the next day, and I'm like, fuck this, let's all go electric. It's but you ever hear the story of it was in the documentary Gas Hole of the guy who modified I can't even talk today, modified engine to get 100 miles per gallon. And is that something that's realistic, that even the engine that as we're using it isn't that productive or isn't that efficient? And are they even suppressing the gas engine, or is that something that's...
It's one of those that if you remove a lot of the weight from the vehicle, if you remove a lot of the emissions control systems, and if you change your fueling up, it is certainly possible to get much higher fuel mileage. Like you mentioned earlier, 1% of the energy that's burned goes into moving your butt around. There's a lot of ways to make that more efficient. There's a hell of a lot of ways to do that.
Yeah, and there's even that the video online of the guy who created that water-powered, it looked like a little doom buggy thing, a water-powered car. I don't know if you've ever seen that online, but...
We have a setup at my work right now where we turn water into hydrogen and run the engines off of it. It's all possible. It really is.
Do you guys use an electrolyzer?
Yes.
Yeah. The company I work for, we work in electrolyzers also. High-pressure hydrogen, oxygen.
So basically, for idiots like me who don't know what you guys are talking about, you guys turn water into, like, you break it down to two elements, and then
into hydrogen and oxygen,
and then that's how you create, and then you use that for energy.
John, he uses the hydrogen for to run engines, right?
Yep, exactly. Now, you got to think of this as it's not a perpetual motion machine.
Right.
Every little step in it loses energy. The engine itself is only about 20% efficient. So if you have to put electricity into the hydrogen, and then you have to burn the hydrogen at 20% efficient, all you're really doing is extending your range. You are not fully displacing it. Mm-hmm. The problem with hydrogen as a fuel is it's already connected to everything around it, and it takes energy to split that connection.
Right. If you can use solar energy, though, to harness, the electricity and then power your electrolyzer, you can split your water and get your hydrogen and oxygen, which is
where that energy comes from. It's a difference.
Right.
Damn, we're going to solve the world's problems today, aren't we?
The thing is, they've been talking about this stuff for, longer than I've been alive. I'm 26 years old, and it's just it hasn't gotten that push. The guys that I work with in the fuel cell industry, they're, as old as my dad, 60 plus years old, and they've seen the same thing over and over. They're complaining, when are fuel cells going to get that push? But honestly, I think they're going to get the push now, but it's not really going to be into like a commercial, hop in your fuel cell powered car and take off. I think it's going to be into the military, drones, unmanned aerial vehicles, unmanned underwater vehicles, basically anything like that where you want to increase your range, spy on people, stuff like that.
Big brother.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So here's a good way to make hydrogen for you. I don't know if you guys are a fan of nuclear at all. I think it's a wonderful way to go. It's very, very energy dense.
I'm up in the air about it. I'm still learning.
I don't really know anything about it.
Yeah, I some people say that it's not. If it wasn't for the subsidies, it wouldn't be profitable. Is that true?
I don't see how it's possible. Once the thing's built, they're very easy to do. Babcock and Wilcox has a 125 megawatt unit that mounts on a train car, and they can transport anywhere. They're being used on military bases right now. Now, what they do to produce electricity is they turn water into steam, and they turn turbines. Those turbines, the waste heat from that is still several hundred degrees. So that's really hot, and it's just wasted energy. If you put bromide salt into that, which is a very common element, it splits into hydrogen and oxygen. How's that for a clean fuel source for you?
Right. Here's another one that I've heard. Well, actually, I don't know if I can mention this. Sorry.
Come on,
it was
Chris.
Something,
get fired today, Chris.
Let's get something from work I thought of, but I was like, maybe I shouldn't say it.
But the point is there's other technologies out there.
Yeah, that...
but
just like John was alluding to, how clean is that? It's something along those lines. Unfortunately, I can't say what it is, but... Damn it.
but absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. What sucks is, like, we've talked about this before, how the military will any good idea, they'll take it and use it. And I mean, I think Brazil, what people might not know, and if people check out Pump, it's on Netflix, and or it's everywhere where you can rent it or download it and check it out. And it's a great documentary. And it highlighted Brazil, which was a really interesting thing because they have complete independence from oil, and every gas station has the ethanol option or the regular gas option. And most people there, seeing the interviews in the documentary, would rather the ethanol. And so it's amazing that they got away from gas and whatnot. What gave them the opportunity, or was it just I know the president was huge for, just basically not being a victim to the oil companies. Was that what we need, something like that? Or, how did the oil companies not get their hand involved in that and not stop them from creating basically independence from gasoline and diesel?
They had two really good elements that we have discussed earlier. Is sugarcane is much better at making sugar with starches, etc., than corn is. So they have a great local resource to be able to turn into the ethanol. Additionally, in the late 1970s, the ruler of the country declared that all the gas stations need to have ethanol pumps as well. And that's what we need, is a policy that says, hey, we're going to go a different way. We're going to make additional choices. I'm not saying that we should necessarily all choose ethanol, but the whole point is they made a choice and they went towards one of those, and they established the infrastructure, they helped pay for it, and they created millions and millions of jobs. I mean, I don't remember the exact quote, but from the movie they talked about how many millions of people went from lower class to middle class. Imagine if all that money we are wasting right now sending overseas. I feel like it's over $1 billion a year, if not a day, I'm not sure the exact figure, gets sent overseas. What if all that money was staying here for local jobs, for local infrastructure, because we have local fueling solutions? That's what we need. We need somebody to give us a real energy policy, somebody that can move us forward in that direction. I haven't heard that anywhere yet.
Yeah, we spend money recklessly. I mean, it's insane. I mean, I was showing a couple, I don't know if you were there when I was showing a couple friends the graph on how much the U.S. spends on military and defense.
Yeah, I saw that.
And then the next 9 countries combined doesn't add up to what the U.S. spends. And that's insane because, I mean, I remember when we started bombing in Yemen, and CNN or Fox News, whatever mainstream media channel I was watching, they were showing how they were dropping Tomahawk missiles that were valued at like $3 million or $5 million, some ridiculous amount of money. And like they're kind of bragging, oh, we just dropped like these amazing missiles. And I'm thinking to myself, I'm like, there's people today who literally are living paycheck to paycheck, that if they lost their job today, they'd lose their house tomorrow. And we're just recklessly spending money like crazy. And then we're going to complain about, oh, those damn people living off welfare. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? How about like corporate welfare? We spend way more money on subsidies. It's like, do you feel bad for the person who's living in a poor area that there's violence and they go to bed hearing gunshots, or the billionaire who's getting taxpayer money for subsidies for his corporation? I mean, it's insane. But it's like they've done a great job of turning us against each other, so then we don't focus on the what's really going on.
Well said. Well said. I mean, if you look at the average taxpayer, I mentioned $5,700 in oil subsidies alone for every taxpayer. Our debt is over $120,000 per taxpayer right now. Yet we only spend about, I think it was $70 per year on welfare to support those around us.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, oh yeah, damn those poor people. Let's take away their food.
Let's turn on them.
I remember I was at the gym and Fox News was on, because I don't know why anybody puts Fox News anywhere, but they had it on at the gym. And they were talking about how, like, there's people on welfare who have big screen TVs, like they're outraged. I'm like, oh my God, they want a little bit of entertainment. Like, it's like this idea that, like, if they have anything that's not a necessity, then all of a sudden they're mooching off the system. And we have to look at the history of poverty and how we created these ghettos and poor neighborhoods by suppressing black people from moving into suburbs, and obviously the whole history of that. I won't get into that, but I mean, it's amazing how it seems like it's a well thought out strategy to turn us against each other with like gay marriage and all these things that really aren't important. I mean, obviously it's important in that, but I'm saying it keeps us away from these other issues, and it turns us on each other. And it seems like this is one of these issues where we can all come together on. And it's like, it doesn't matter if you're Democrat, Republican, liberal, conservative. It doesn't matter if you're pro or anti-gay marriage, if you're whatever. Like, we all agree that, we don't like the fact that we have zero control over gas prices, that when they go up, you have no choice but to cut corners and find a way to pay for fuel so you can get to work. And we should be looking for alternative energy. Now, my only concern with that is that we talked about electric powered cars, and they use batteries. Now, the same way that OPEC and a handful of corporations have a stranglehold on the oil resource, don't you think that there could be possibly the same type of monopoly with the same exotic materials that are like cobalt in the Congo and stuff like that, like that's needed? Is that ever something you worry about? Like,
I am so glad you brought that up. I was going to mention that earlier. We have basically 3 lithium mines in the world right now, and China has the biggest one, followed by Lithuania, and I think the U.S. has opened 1 or 2 of them. But how is that declaring energy independence? If you have to rely on China, who is going to become one of the biggest consumers ever? So how is having that actually be a solution, especially if you can't rebuild them? I know we get more energy density out of them, but I feel like we're better off with stuff like nickel metal hydrides. However, you can make batteries from thousands of different materials. So we just need to be able to have the option. I personally like the idea of electric cars where you don't own the battery, where you don't have to worry about charging. You pull into the station, they pull a little tray underneath your car, lift it up, pull your battery out, put a new one back in, see you later. It should be that simple.
Yeah, because that's one of the concerns, is that if something breaks on an electric car, it can get very pricey. And that's another, I know with some people that I've talked to that have been on the fence about getting an electric car, that's one of the concerns of theirs is, well, they've heard horror stories about if the battery goes in a Prius, how expensive it is to repair or
$1,500 right now. It's only $1,500 to replace your Prius battery. It used to be $8,000, but in the last 7 to 10 years, it has dropped to $1,500.
Wow!
And then that's an example of a hybrid, which has a gasoline engine as well. What if that gasoline engine broke? You just talked about what it was to repair your Ford as well, or I'm sorry, your Dodge,
right?
And anything that happens with that.
Oh, it's expensive as
the
hell.
Simpler the vehicle, the cheaper it is going to be to repair. If your motor goes bad, you literally take off your wheel, you put the new motor on, you're done. Your battery pack goes bad, you unplug it, you put it back in. I mean, my phone right now, if the battery dies, I just whip one out, put a new one in, let the other one charge. These are solutions we have already. I mean, this is not that big a deal to deal with.
John, I have a question about basically ethanol and methanol. Is this something you can make at home? Like, I know people make biodiesel and stuff, and there's a guy local to us, Rick, who he's got a Dodge Cummins, and he runs it off vegetable oil that he gets from like McDonald's and restaurants and stuff. I'm just wondering if there's do-it-yourselfer type people that could do that at home. You know, make the fuel, put it in their car.
Fortunately, there are completely legal methods in the U.S. to create your own ethanol. You can get I think it's a distiller's permit, and you can make your own. The problem is, if you use it in your car, especially if it wasn't certified, the EPA is not happy about that. And who gets the road tax for it? Who gets the usage tax?
Oh.
Those are the types of issues we need to resolve. However, David Bloom, who you saw in the documentary, he has a device that you can put in the neighborhood, basically half the size of a tractor trailer, just the trailer part, and you can actually put compost in it, you can put grass clippings, and it will make methanol or ethanol right now. So that's how you come up with a local solution. You have one company that comes around and delivers it. Additionally, you can't take a truck with a gasoline in it and drive it around and deliver fuel. You can deliver alcohols from a truck. You imagine having like the ice cream man driving around and, oh, do you need a top off today? Just press the button on the app by 7 o'clock in the morning and we'll get it for you.
Wow.
And those are local solutions available right now because the alcohols are biodegradable and burn cleaner. You have that with gasoline, you have a lot more issues.
And
so we can make it. We have ways to distribute it locally. Just why can't we have it? Because the cars aren't there.
And I mean, guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but even with a diesel engine that you get right from the showroom floor today, couldn't you just put vegetable oil in it? Or do you have to do modifications?
You certainly can, especially you have to make sure it's properly filtered. And then you got to have the right temperature. If it's too cold, that's like oil or gel.
Here. Right, yeah. That's one of the most annoying things with diesel. Like in the winter, I run anti-gel in my tank because the diesel fuel itself, it will start to gel when it's really cold and then clogs up your fuel filter. Then you're trying to start in the morning and you can't. But
the reason we have biodiesel is because you take apart about 20% of the oil molecule, which I think it's glycerin or glycerol. I can never remember that.
Glycerin.
And then you add methanol and lye to that vegetable oil to make it into biodiesel, which makes it less viscous, which is why you can use it more in the winter.
Damn. Yeah, this is it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable that these options have been around forever. I mean, that diesel engine wasn't even designed to run off diesel fuel, and yet, like, you know, that's what we're using right now. I mean, it's
the whole infrastructure of America and every other country. How do you transport stuff? If it goes on a train, the train is run off a big ass diesel engine. You know, all the tractor trailer trucks you see, those are all diesel. So, you know, hike up the price there, and people are still gonna buy it because that trucker needs to get, you know, from Massachusetts to California, and he's got to put diesel in his tank. If it costs him $5 a gallon, it sucks, but he's still gonna pay for it.
And he's going to pass that cost right on to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Or the lot lizard. I'm kidding. Yeah, I had a couple of trucker buddies that told me what a lot lizard was. I just learned. But yeah, it's amazing. I mean, so the thing about, I know you said you're a fan of nuclear power, but isn't it a little scary, the idea that, like, if something goes wrong, like Chernobyl or Fukushima, that, like, we're on this floating spaceship we call Earth, and, like, we're kind of already we have a lack of space that we can live on and stuff like that. I guess we really don't, because everybody wants to live on the coast. We still have plenty of land in the middle of the country. But, you know, isn't there something like, you know, this just, it's concerning to think that if something goes wrong, there's a piece of this Earth that we can't go anywhere near for a long period of time. Like, doesn't it seem like a very unsafe option for energy?
I think the unsafe part was the design of those particular reactors. If you look at what we use in the U.S., that's not a problem. If the water is not touching the rods, it's not reacting. There is no meltdown. Additionally, there is such good containment around what we have in the U.S., it's never a problem. If you look at all the nuclear waste so far, it would fill a football field 8 yards deep from all of the ones ever produced to date. And right now, we can actually re-enrich that and make it so that we use the rest of it as well. So there is no longer the waste.
That's interesting. Yeah. So, because I've heard so many conflicting opinions on nuclear. You know, people that are pro, and then people who say that, you know, like I said before, this without subsidies, they wouldn't be making money. They wouldn't be able to keep these plants alive. And also, I mean, this obviously with Chernobyl and Fukushima, with those things happening, I mean, it scares people like myself who don't know too much about it to think that it's a dangerous option. And but yeah, I mean, maybe you're right. Maybe it was just the design. I don't know which document I saw a special on one of the two events, and they showed how it was basically just a company that didn't keep up with the maintenance and stuff like that, and that's what kind of caused the issue. I don't know if it was Fukushima or Chernobyl, but even with that said, I mean, corporations are going to cut corners. They're not going to keep up with everything as needed at times. And then if something goes wrong with a nuclear plant, it seems like the consequences are much more serious than with other options, you know. So I mean, am I just being maybe just naive or ignorant to the topic, or, you know, I mean, I guess it's just scary, this idea that if something did go wrong, then a part of the earth nobody can live there for who knows how many years, you know, and it just seems like there's other and more reliable and better options. And but so somebody who is anti nuclear, is that basically the concern? Is that what you hear, or is it other concerns that I might not understand?
A lot of it is just the people trying to understand old technologies and old techniques for doing the nuclear decay. Nowadays, the designs are so inherently safe in operation that they are never meant to overheat. They can't explode. If you look, there's a 12-foot concrete and rebar reinforced structure around it anyway that could absorb any of the energy once you get the water out.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Then that might be it. Yeah, because again, it's one of those topics, just like a lot of these topics. You know, like we talked about ethanol and people complaining about food prices linked to ethanol and stuff like that. And even though, like, I think in the documentary they talked about how corn feed, you actually make ethanol, right, in the process of making corn feed. So you have this energy that just nobody's using.
Exactly. If the cow would have eaten that whole piece of corn, it still would have passed through 25% of the starches because it can't break it down. Instead, we turn that into ethanol, we give them the leftovers, and they get a more energy-dense food for them. So it's more food, more fuel.
What do we do with that ethanol? Nothing?
Oh, that's what we're using for blending right now with that 10% blend wall, with all the fuel being 10% ethanol. Only 1% of ethanol is sold as E85 in this country right now.
That's crazy, because I think the movie had a statistic about how we're 5% of the world, but we're 20%. We use 20% of the world's oil, which is absolutely fucking insane. Because you look at, you know, just, and I'm sure China's probably up there, because I know they've had a boom with you know, their love for cars recently, and which I think they actually, you know, they showed that in the film too. And so yeah, I mean, as like you said, more cars on the road, and it becomes a more serious issue. And we're too young to remember this, but you guys showed in the film the crisis in the 70s with the people just line up at the gas stations and stuff like that. What was that all about? What caused that? Was it just OPEC saying we wanted to raise prices? Or I know it was the Egypt and Syria attacked Israel, but how did that affect?
We supported Israel, and OPEC said we didn't like that, so they cut off all our oil supply. And it's still that simple. If they decide to chop off right at the knees right now, we wouldn't have a choice. We would have no other way to run our cars. There would be no option. Sweden, you mentioned earlier that Germany survived on their own by doing their own artificial gasoline. Sweden, because they were cut off in the middle of everything, started using wood stoves in their trunks to run their cars and create syngas. But they had to retrofit it. We have the ability right now to be creating these sources locally so it never gets interrupted, and the car could still have a choice. It doesn't have to be designated for one fuel. They can run on infinite number of liquid fuels. If you have a gaseous fuel storage system, you can run on that too.
What's your feeling on the future of cars? Because I mean, we all love cars, everybody, and or everybody here, and we love driving, as we could see with your burnout with the Cobalt in the movie, which is pretty impressive. Because I'm like, how the fuck did he get a Cobalt to drive like that? But what do you? What's your opinions on the future of possibly just cars driving us places? I mean, I think it's an easy sell to most of the public who aren't car guys or girls, because of the idea that it's safer. If you drink, you don't have to worry about how to get home. I mean, is that something? Because I mean, from a person who really enjoys driving, it kind of seems like a bummer. But is it something that do you see that in the future, and something that possibly could happen, and we just might as well just get used to the idea that we might not be able to drive eventually?
Agreed. I see three things happening. I do see in the cities electric. I see that popping up much more often. I see car sharing happening. It's going to be so expensive to repair your car, let alone own one, that it's going to be a group of people that look up on their app, hey, I need a car from this time to this time. Done. They go get the car, or the car comes to them. I'm a big fan of self-driving cars. I love driving. I love whipping around those corners. But you guys have to merge on the interstates before?
Yeah.
People don't have a clue how to merge. These cars would get us there quicker, they would do it more efficiently, and they would waste less of our time. So I am all for it. I don't know if it's going to be one of those that every road above 45 or 50 miles per hour has to be automated, and you can drive around your neighborhood if you really want. But I really see that we're going to go to more self-driving, whether it is gasoline, whether it is alternative fuels, but it's the same approach as the fleets. It's going to be a fleet owner purchasing mass quantities of cars that they get to choose the particular fueling option.
Yeah.
It can't be the individual owner.
But the other thing, talking about Big Brother, and it just kind of reminds me of the Michael Hastings story, and just the idea of possibly electric car getting hacked. Isn't that a serious concern? I mean, that kind of scares the shit out of me, because I mean, you drive, you drive your old hot rod or your old car. I mean, you don't have to worry about any of that. But now, like, everything is controlled by the computer, where you could seriously hack it and basically get the car to do anything. I mean, is that something that, how would you protect against that? I mean, that just seems like another thing that would be really scary in the future.
Oh, just install your Norton firewall, of course. I mean, it's the same thing as your computer, your phone. You can be walking around right now, and if you have your Wi-Fi on, somebody can get into your phone.
Yeah.
We know how to fight that and get through it. And it's going to be a constantly evolving virus that we have to fight. That is definitely not my major concern, and I think that they're going to be constantly updating them. For example, right now, if you want to update your car, you do have to go to the dealership and get it updated. However, if you have OnStar, they can rewrite your computer right now. Tesla, if you have an issue with the car, they will upload the latest firmware update overnight while you're sleeping.
That's wild.
So the technology is already there. It's easy to do, and there are going to be hackers that expose it, but it's going to be a cycle of they break through, you build a new wall. They break through, you build a new wall.
Yeah, but if somebody hacks my Wi-Fi, I don't possibly die. I guess that's the thing that kind of scares me a little bit. And but yeah, like you said, it's we've had the same type of battle with computers, Wi-Fi's. It's the same thing. You obviously there's always going to be people who are going to hack things, but you look at it just like when we initially started buying things online. Everybody was super afraid of putting their bank accounts and everything online, and now we all pay online, and we all do all our bill paying and our accounting online and all that stuff. So it's just it's one of those things where I'm sure eventually, as the technology evolves and then we get more comfortable with it, it'll be one of those things where we just it will be okay. But it's all very interesting. You got any final thoughts? Any?
John mentioned about the cars one day, if they are, they all drive themselves. You're going to have basically like a fleet owner, because it's going to be too expensive for, me or you to own their own car that drives itself. I think that's another thing that these alternative energy cars have going against them, almost like a fuel cell powered bus or something like this. You're not going to go to Jiffy Lube and get the oil changed or something. You're probably going to have to bring it to a more expensive place and almost have like an engineer work on it. You need the engineer to repair the fuel cell, or your balance of plant is screwing up, something is happening, it's no longer going to be something that like an average skilled person could do. You're probably going to need to be reasonably smart and able to work on those types of things. Where I see like the ethanol and the methanol just going right into the internal combustions that we have now as something that, guy like John could outfit your car, reprogram your computer, change your timing, and, I could be off driving with methanol, but we're just being held back without those choices. I mean, right now, if we wanted to get, ethanol, we'd have to drive like an hour.
Yeah, we'd have to
more.
yeah, drive on gas to get there, and then
right, unless we got big like transfer tanks and filled them up.
Yeah, that's a good point. Like this idea. So you're basically saying one thing that could suppress its progression is the idea that how expensive it is to work on and fix.
I think so, but I also think that's a problem that can be overcome. But I think, like now in the near term, it could be prohibitive.
Cars in general have evolved a lot, and I think that's a common issue. I mean, mom and pop mechanic places aren't doing very well anymore because I think they just can't keep up with. I mean, you work at a Cadillac dealership, Mercedes, whatever. Most of the time you're a specialist in that type of car because every car has their own technology and it evolves. Especially German cars, they evolve so quickly. Where every year they're putting new technology and they're changing something. And so this mom and pop place that can work on anything that just rolls up, I think is becoming a thing of the past.
The day of the shade tree mechanic is, it's kind of gone. It was, good in the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s, the 60s even. But as you start to add all these electronics, like I consider myself fairly handy on my cars. I do all the stuff, but not on the newer cars because I don't understand the computers and all the electronics that goes into it. And honestly, I don't really want to understand it. I enjoy working on the older, purely mechanical stuff. So I think the day of the old school.
You bring up some excellent points, and that is going to be the evolution for the next 15 to 20 years. Two of the main guys I work with right now have been working on cars for 30 years. Mm-hmm. And just the computer stuff I teach them is still the next level. I mentioned earlier that you're going to have to be an electrical engineer just to be able to work on a car. And yes, you are going to have to go to the specialty dealer. Mm-hmm. Right now, if you want to become a specialty dealer, you have to pay thousands in having to get the training, plus the equipment. The programmers that we use for talking to our General Motors cars, they could be $10,000 to $15,000.
Wow.
Plus, you have to pay an annual subscription to be able to access the dealer network.
Oh, of course you do. That's another thing. That's great.
Yeah. I mean, this topic is, I think it's just such an important topic. Like Chris said about his girlfriend after she watched the documentary, she wanted to buy ethanol car.
Yeah, she could give a shit less about cars.
But I think it's one of those things where I had the same feeling. I mean, I watch documentaries like Gasol and like Pump, and it just every time I watch something like that, it reignites the flame of anger of how we just don't realize how much of our money just goes to gas, and how we really don't, like you said, we don't have a choice. We can't boycott it. We can't, because we have no other options. And and unfortunately, I think it's just the corporate world we live in. I think capitalism, creates that. Capitalism eventually equals a monopoly. If they keep growing and infinite growth and profit. And when something's profitable, they're going to hold on to it. And right now, oil is very profitable. But I think people our age, and I you don't look much older than us, if not our age. I'm 30, and I think people are becoming more. I mean, the people who grew up with hot rods and older cars and stuff like that, I think people are caring less about that, unfortunately. And the younger crowd really just cares about okay, what's efficient, what's
that's definitely something that a lot of people like me and then the older guys, most people are into hot rods customs. They are older guys. You still have young guys, but it's definitely something that's dying out. The young guys nowadays, they want the latest, the greatest. They want the most bang for their buck. They want to go and buy the car that has 450 horsepower. They don't want to buy like an old flathead Ford from the 30s and put a supercharger on it and make maybe 150, 200 horsepower. Although I think that's cool as hell. A lot of people just aren't used to that. They're not into that anymore. And to me, it's kind of sad because I love that stuff. It's really a passion for me. But, yeah, you're right.
Well, there's something like the roar of just exhaust, and it just, there's something about, I mean, it just raises your testosterone just hearing it or something. It just, I think there's, it is going to be, but I think that, even me, as much as I love the sound of an 8-cylinder, and I think it gets to a point where we have to think of, what's practical and, the future. And that's the thing. That's why Nikolai Tesla was, I think, an inventor that a lot of people don't know much about. And it's a shame, because he really did care about the future of humanity. And I think we're all convinced this idea that innovation comes from people who are motivated by money, but it doesn't. It comes from people who are motivated by their work. I'm sure, you love what you're doing, and hopefully you're making money doing it. But you're doing what you're doing because you love it, and the money comes afterwards, and same thing with Nikolai Tesla. The whole, everybody knows who Edison is, but a lot of people don't know who Nikolai Tesla is, because he was looking for free energy and trying to give people free electricity, which can't be metered, and JP Morgan put an end to it. So I think that, and that's why I think Elon Musk is another great example of a guy who really cares about the future of humanity, and I think that, that's really what's going to be the difference. Is going to be people like yourself and these people who are really motivated to make a difference in the culture and society, and pushing these ideas. And I'm so glad that Pump came out, because it's a beautifully put together documentary. It's one that even people in their teens today could probably, keep their attention, without checking their Facebook update. and so it's just, I think it's awesome. So I think people who are listening, please check it out. And how can people get in, what are you up to? Are you, is there any website or anything that they can see any of your work or what you're up to and things you're working on?
I have literally talked to thousands of people over the last 9 months about Pump and what they can do. And so I put together a website recently they'll be launching in the next week or so called fuelverine.com. That's also my Twitter handle. That's my Gmail. I am more than willing to answer any questions people have about what they can do to enable fuel choice. I've stood in front of the Arizona House of Representatives and declared that I believe that their vehicles should all be flexible fuel right then and there. They already had it in their books from the 1990s, and they were just trying to reinsert it so that the public could have those. The problem is many of those flex fuel cars I talked about are only in the hands of the fleet and government sector rather than the private. We, the people, really matter, and I hope that we can unite and actually come up with some solutions together. Because if those people that are leading us or Big Brother aren't going to help us, we need to make the decision on our own, and I hope to enable that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they don't.
And there's so many brilliant people out there, like you, John. You seem like a real smart guy who knows about a lot of these automotive stuff, and just like you, there's tons of smart people out there that are always inventing new ways to do things, and a lot of times, unfortunately, it just doesn't catch on, and Big Brother just tries to squash it. If you have a good idea, get rid of it. Like it blew my mind when I saw the thing about the electric trolley cars. The black and white photo with the two guys standing in front of the trolley car that's on fire. That's insane.
That is insane. Well, I mean, you look at Ralph Nader. I mean, he got a tons of shit when he was fighting the car makers. He got threatened. I mean, when he was trying to put airbags and changing the designs and stuff like that. I mean, he was getting threatened. It was insane.
Seatbelts too,
there's,
I think, right?
Yeah, seatbelts. I mean, there's so much money in the car market, and that's why I love GM. I've bought a lot of GM vehicles, but I hate their business practice. I mean, because it's just, I mean, you look at just recently that whole ignition thing, with whatever it was, a 10-cent recall could have saved
spring or something?
Yeah, could have saved some lives. I mean, that's unfortunately the world we live in today, where it's all about, companies are public, they care about quarterly gains. That there's people who are looking at graphs, and exactly, they're looking at graphs and they're saying, well, if our stockholders aren't going to be happy, we do this recall, and then it's going to, we made less profit this quarter, and it's all about the profit. And I think that we look at it as there's this one boogeyman, but I think it really is as simple sometimes as people just looking at ones and zeros and graphs, and they just care about how do we make immediate profit and keep it going. And if it means cut corners, if it means use something in food or medicine or synthetic medicine that's eventually going to be banned. You see banks do it all the time where, I forget which bank was laundering money for the drug cartels and then got fined, but they made way more profit than what the fine was in the first place. So it just, I mean, you looked at the trolley car thing. They got fined. I mean, but I forget what the fine was. It was like ridiculously nothing compared to, I don't know what it was, but it was, I know it was very small compared to the money they made making the U.S. Using diesel powered buses.
And electric trolley cars and all that. It's such a great idea. I mean, go to San Francisco. They still use it. And I was there 2 years ago. I didn't get to ride the trolley. Why? Because it was always so full, and I just didn't feel like waiting. But people will use it. But you have, just a couple trolley cars, driving around the city. There's people literally hanging off of them. And the fact that it's all a bunch of hills and it sucks walking up them. But
Right.
they would definitely catch on. I mean, Boston and anywhere.
I think Lisbon. I mean, we're both Portuguese. I think Lisbon has. They have trolleys? It's been a while since I've been there.
I don't know.
I think Lisbon. I'm sure there's European countries that use it, right? And other countries that use the electric trolley.
No, most certainly. Also, the biggest difference with Europe is they pay about 3 times as much than we do for fuel, and they're about 60% diesels.
Yeah.
We're mostly gasoline. And they're mostly diesel because it's a more thermodynamically efficient engine.
Yeah, because I was born in Portugal. And we're both Portuguese, and the one thing I always heard from my parents and stuff like that growing up, how in Portugal diesel was cheaper, and they come here and diesel is more expensive, and it was always kind of weird to me. I'm like, why? But I think it has something to do with what they use the oil to production, right? Is it they only
road taxes?
Oh, okay.
They have to get. Oh yes, if you look, it's about 30 to 50% of that cost is road taxes.
Wow.
It's artificially more costly here.
Those son of a bitches. Yeah. Well, thanks a lot, John. I really, really appreciate your time. This was a really awesome conversation. I learned a lot, and
Me too.
And I actually had to watch Pump twice because I really sometimes it's hard to consume all the information the first
I did
time.
too.
But yeah, it's a great documentary. I'm glad you guys are doing it, and I'm glad because I think that it does take sparking these conversations to get people aware of things that are just. I mean, I think it's insane to think that you tell somebody that the diesel engine wasn't designed for diesel fuel, or Henry Ford's first car was designed for ethanol. I think Henry Ford had a quote that ethanol was the fuel of the future. And to say these things is just, and the fact that most people have a flex fuel car that they don't even know what flex fuel is. I mean, it's insane how much of this information people just don't know, and it's just it's awesome to be able to have to be a part of this, and hopefully I can do my part in sharing this information with more people and sparking this conversation, because I think it's just such an important conversation. And like we talked about, I mean, if for no other reason, if you're not an environmentalist or you don't care about the environment or whatever, just look at how personally it affects you by the cost of gas, and how you have zero control over it, and how we all hate when gas prices go up, and a lot of times there's no explanation. It's just bullshit information. Oh, there's this happened in this country, so gas prices go up, and we just all just kind of we eat that up and just use it, just assume that it's the reason why gas prices went up, but there's really no logic to it. And so I just think it's if you don't care about the environment, and if you just look a selfish person, I mean, just look at how it affects you personally. And so I think that really pushing for these, and the thing is about politicians, obviously most of them are corrupt and only care about campaign money and all that stuff. But if enough, they also care about votes, and if enough people get upset and start saying, hey, we want this, they'll go that route. Somebody's going to go that route and push forward just for the sake of getting votes, and so I think that obviously the lobbying firms and stuff like that have a lot of control over bills and stuff like that. But I think that if the people speak, I mean, I think that look what happened to Syria the first time that Obama wanted to go there. The people said no, we don't want to go, and we actually postponed it for a little bit. That's all we did was postpone it. But we can. So I think it was a great victory for the fact that it reminded us that if we all come together, they will listen, and we'll at least make a little bit of noise. And I think that, if we say that, hey, we want an option, we want more options, we want, to be able to use ethanol, we want ethanol tanks, gas stations, places. I think maybe if we're lucky, some politician will jump on board, even if it's for the selfish reason of getting votes. So, hopefully we can do that. So, but first of all, we need to get this information out there. We need to get people to talk and realize how simple it is to not have to be, chained to the oil companies. And it's really that simple. Like we assume that we have this energy crisis and we're chained to the oil companies. We have no other options. And it's amazing when you realize, holy shit, for $150, you can do a little software upgrade on a car and you can run ethanol. That's fucking insane to most people. Most people couldn't even. I mean, you say that to them, they would look at you like you're crazy. Like there's, it just so and it's running off alcohol that you can make from anything. So I think it's really important information that my hat goes off to you guys and then your work and then sparking these conversations.
Thank you very much for having me. You guys are very well informed, and I hope that this reaches a lot of people. Pump, I truly believe, is the truth, and it will unite the people. We need this choice. We need to save money together.
Have you gotten any backlash for the film? Anybody, I know anytime, you said that Pump is the truth. You ever get people who are like, oh, no, that's bullshit? Or, how's the film been doing? I
haven't had a single bad word from anybody who has seen the movie, nor any of the dealerships I've worked with and talked to. The people that were pretty pissed off are pretty high up in GM, and word has trickled down to me.
Really? Yeah.
We're pissing off the right people, though, and that's what really makes me happy about it.
That's what you need to do.
If people are upset, that means you're doing something right. Yeah, that's the way I look at it. Yeah. And you said, what was your website again? It was
fuelverine.com.
Oh, you're a Marvel Comics guy, huh?
Oh, yes, sir.
Yeah, I'm a nerd. I'm a Marvel Comics nerd. Sorry. I grew up liking Marvel Comics. It was funny because when I saw you in the film, I'm like, oh, he looks like Wolverine. And so it makes perfect sense. But, well, thanks again, John. I really, really appreciate it. And keep up the great work. And hopefully we'll have you on again in the future.
Sounds good.
Thank you, John.
Thanks, John. Take care.